Hi, folks. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll just have folks join, as they come in. So I want to be respectful to everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's your lunchtime, so we really thank you for having lunch with us. And so with that, let me click next. Yeah, so I'm going to give some space to our lovely presenters to present themselves. I'll be your facilitator today. My name is Cassandra Brendon Morales. I'm with the ACLU of Colorado. I'm the Reproductive Rights Campaign Coordinator, pronouns she, her, ella. So I'll hand it over to Justine.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to our friends at the ACLU for putting on this great Reproductive Roadshow every year. We really appreciate the invite to be here. My name is Justine Sandoval, she, hers. I'm the Cobalt State Engagement Director, and I have been with Cobalt for 7 years now. And in that time, I've dedicated my work to helping to ensure reproductive rights for all of Coloradans. It's been great, and I love going around the state and getting people to really care about this issue. I'll go ahead and pass it to Amanda.
Hi, everybody. Amanda Carlson. My pronouns are she, hers. I am the Cobalt Abortion Fund Director and Senior Policy Associate. So I run the Cobalt Abortion Fund, which is the largest independent statewide fund in Colorado.
Hi all, my name's Lizzie. I am the Reproductive Rights Policy Council at the ACLU of Colorado. My pronouns are she, her, and I am very excited to be here today with all of you and with our friends at Cobalt.
Awesome, thank you so much. And thank you again, Cobalt, for teaming up with us and, joining us on our Reaper Roadshow this summer. Awesome, so before we get into it, I just want to do a little housekeeping. So I'll be your tech support person as well as your facilitator. So if you have any questions, there is a little Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. That's where we'll be taking questions. You can drop them in there, and we'll try to answer the questions as the presenters are presenting, but we will also leave space at the end for questions as well. And then if you just want to drop something in the chat, just to comment along, you're more than welcome to. You should see a little chat button at the bottom of your screen. This webinar is being recorded. So if you do accidentally jump off, you can't get back on, we will send the recording along with an email. So look out for that post-event follow-up email. It'll be super juicy. It'll have resources. It'll have upcoming events. It'll have contact information for us in case you want to ask us something that you didn't get a chance to ask us today during the webinar. But yeah, and with that, we'll go over our goals for today. So you're going to learn about the latest Supreme Court case challenging Roe v. Wade. So Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health. So we'll get into that and really talk about what that means for abortion rights in Colorado and really the region and how it's going to affect folks across the country, right? So you'll also learn about the Colorado State's coverage ban, which is a barrier to abortion access here in Colorado. So a lot of you probably know about it. Some of you, maybe this is your first time learning about it. Doesn't matter, we're here to learn and you'll learn more about it. And then we'll close off with talking about the Cobalt Abortion Fund and how to get involved. So it'll all wrap up nicely and you'll really leave knowing what you can do for your community and knowing how you can get involved, from your home. So you don't even really have to leave. But with that, I will pass it over to Lizzie, who's gonna walk us through the Supreme Court case.
Thank you, Cass. All right, so as a lot of folks might be aware, there is another abortion ban at the Supreme Court. It's in the case of Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. It's a case out of Mississippi. This is just the latest that we've seen at the Supreme Court, but it's critical because for the first time, the court is actually reconsidering the key findings of Roe. And the state of Mississippi, in its briefs submitted in this case, has explicitly called for the Supreme Court to overturn Roe. So this is a huge case. Everyone's keeping an eye on it, and we're going to just kind of talk about what it could mean for abortion rights in Colorado and beyond. So this particular case concerns a Mississippi state law that was enacted in, I believe, 2019. And part of what it did is that it is a complete abortion ban after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Why that 15 weeks is important is because the central holding of Roe and all of the cases that came after it is that a state cannot ban abortion before the point of fetal viability. And fetal viability is defined as a stage where a fetus could survive outside of a pregnant person with medical intervention. That point of viability needs to be determined on a case-by-case basis. As we know, some pregnancies will never be viable. Some will be viable at an earlier stage than others. But on average, fetal viability occurs around 23 to 24, 25 weeks. So this state law takes away the right to choose abortion at a point that is decidedly before fetal viability. And this was done by design. The state lawmakers in Mississippi wanted to enact a law that they knew would bring a direct challenge to this key premise of Roe, given that there is now a 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court. So that, just to give a little background on the case, the Jackson Women's Health Organization filed a lawsuit along with some other plaintiffs. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the appellate court that comes before the Supreme Court, held that this law was unconstitutional under Roe, and the state appealed to the Supreme Court. In past years, and with a different court, we would have expected the court to deny review of this case. They do not need to accept all cases that come to them, and we would have expected them to deny it because this law is an explicit violation of Roe v. Wade. There's no if, and but about it. And the Supreme Court has this thing called precedent that they typically honor in a pretty ironclad way. They don't like to overrule themselves and say that they got something wrong. So you would have thought that they would have said, nope, Roe has been decided for nearly 50 years, case closed. But no, they accepted this case on cert. They will be hearing oral arguments this fall, and we will likely have an opinion in this case next spring or early summer. So let's see, where else should I go from here? Could we do the next, wait, let me see actually. 1 second, folks. Okay, yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so this will be before the Supreme Court in the fall on oral argument. If the court decides that they're going to uphold the Mississippi law, they're going to uphold a law that says that you no longer have the right to choose abortion even before the point of viability, then that will overturn the key cornerstone of Roe. So what will this mean? If Roe is overturned in this way, if Roe is overturned in this way, it means that the states have more freedom to enact abortion bans during any stage of pregnancy. A lot of states have already done that, but those laws have been enjoined, meaning they have been legally prevented from taking effect. But the Supreme Court in this, if it overturns Roe, the power will go back to the states. There is this really amazing resource that the Center for Reproductive Rights, which is actually representing the abortion clinic in this case, has. It's linked in the slide, and we'll link it in our follow-up email. It shows you a map of the United States, and it tells you what the legal landscape of state law in the United States will look like in a post-Roe world. And if you click on it, you'll see that there's a whole lot of red and orange, which indicates the red states are where abortion will almost definitely be outlawed after Roe. And I believe that's 24 states, including a few territories. So what you'll see is that after Roe, the country will be divided into what we call abortion deserts and a few safe havens. The map will show, some blue spots on the West Coast in the Northeast, some promising yellow spots in Illinois and other parts of the Midwest. But you'll notice that even Colorado is not, not as, it's not, let's just say it's not blue or yellow, it's decidedly orange, because even though abortion will still remain legal in Colorado, it is not protected. So there's no state law, nor do we have a state constitutional amendment or a state court decision interpreting our Constitution that says abortion rights are protected in Colorado. We're kind of on uneven ground. So already in Colorado, and I'm sure my friend Amanda will speak more to this, we see folks coming in from other states to access abortion care here all the time because they already live in one of those red states where it's already so hard to find care. So in a post-Roe world, we'll see even more folks coming to Colorado to seek care, and Colorado will be even more of an abortion safe haven than it is already. Next slide, please. So I kind of just went into this. My apologies for kind of being behind on the slides. But so, like I said, abortion will remain legal in Colorado. We don't have a so-called trigger law that many of the red states in that map have that would outlaw abortion. Several years ago, the state legislature repealed pre-Roe abortion restriction laws to ensure those weren't on the books if the Supreme Court were to overturn Roe. So that's good. But like I said, we do not have any affirmative protections for abortion. What we've seen in some other states, including Texas, is that towns and municipalities in pretty conservative pockets have taken upon themselves, in anticipation of Roe being overturned, to enact local ordinances outlawing abortion in their city limits. And if Roe is overturned and the power goes back to the states, and you're in a state that does not protect abortion with state law, like Colorado at the moment, then we could see some conservative pockets of Colorado engaging in those types of ordinances as well. But as a whole, in the state of Colorado, abortion will remain legal post-Roe. We do, of course, have a few barriers in place to abortion right now that will remain in place. Absent any action. One is a parental notification requirement, meaning that a minor must notify a parent before they're able to access abortion, not get parental consent, but just tell a parent or guardian. We do have a judicial bypass component to that, which means that if a minor does not feel that they are able to tell a guardian or a parent before getting an abortion, they're able to seek permission from a judge to access care without that notification. That's in state law. And then the second big restriction that we have, which is really a structural barrier for so many people in Colorado, is we have a state constitutional amendment that was put in place, I believe, in 1984, that bans any public coverage of abortion. That means any insurance plan that is funded with public monies, whether it be Medicaid or whether it be that you get your insurance through a public employer, is unable to cover the cost of abortion care. So if that's where you get your insurance, you have to pay for your care out of pocket because your insurance will not cover it. And that's it for this. I'm going to pass it over to my friend Justine, who's going to tell you a little bit more about these types of coverage bans and how they impact folks. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Lizzie. I was just going to give you a little bit of overview about Cobalt and then definitely go more into these funding bans and how they affect people. So Cobalt is dedicated to fighting systems and structures and policies that protect reproductive rights and guarantee comprehensive universal access to reproductive health care, which includes abortion. The full reproductive autonomy to us means the freedom to decide when and how to use birth control, give birth, or parent. And Cobalt currently has 124,000 members statewide who are voices for our vital work in protecting reproductive health care access here in Colorado. So with that, we'll start with the next slide. and talk about the Hyde Amendment. So we're going to talk about two types of funding bans that we have on abortion here in Colorado. And first, there's the federal Hyde Amendment. And the federal Hyde Amendment is a legislative provision that was passed just a few years after Roe v. Wade that bans the use of federal funding to pay for abortion care, except for when a pregnancy endangers the life of a person or when it results in a rape or as a result from rape or incest. Since 1976, Congress has inserted Hyde language into the annual appropriations or budget bill. Since it was first implemented in 1977, the Hyde Amendment has been expanded to a number of federally funded health insurance programs, like Lizzie had mentioned, including Medicaid, Medicare, the Children's Health Insurance Program, federal employees' health benefits, and Indian Health. And so this excludes coverage to federal employees and their dependents, military personnel and their dependents, people in federal prisons, in immigrant detention centers, Native Americans, and also Peace Corps volunteers. And the United States may elect to use, our US states may elect to use state-based funding to pay for abortion care. And the Hyde Amendment prohibits individuals enrolled in Medicaid. Sorry, I messed up on my notes there. So basically the US states can elect to still use state-based funding to pay for abortion care, but that moves us into our next issue. Next slide, please, which is state funding bans. And Colorado has a state coverage funding ban. A lot of people may know this. That was one of my favorite facts. Colorado was the first state to actually legalize abortion before Roe. But in 1985, Colorado passed an amendment that prevents the use of public funds from coverage of abortion care, except also in cases of rape, incest, or life endangerment of the pregnant person. That means that no state money or federal money goes to funding abortion in Colorado. Colorado's state funding ban creates an insurmountable barrier to care and is particularly harmful to low income people, people of color, young people, immigrants, and those who disproportionately rely on Medicaid for their healthcare coverage. Public funding is available for abortion, like they said, only in cases of life endangerment, rape, or incest, but actually accessing that care, if you do have that exemption, is still extremely difficult, especially here in Colorado. So even though we are a state that definitely protects the rights to access abortion, we still have a very long way to go when it comes to eliminating those financial barriers and to accessing abortion here in Colorado. Next slide, please. So who's affected by coverage bans on abortion? And the Hyde Amendment, both state and federal, prevent pregnant people from accessing the care that they need. And it creates a financial hardship that increases the longer care is delayed. 1 in 5 women of reproductive age are on Medicaid, and the average cost of a first trimester abortion is about $400. And by 20 weeks, the cost actually triples. So there are many factors that can go into people not being able to access care, either state laws, but financial barriers are one of the biggest reasons that delay cost. And when we also think about the cost of abortion, it's not just the cost of care, but it's the cost and the needs that we have to factor in, such as time off, travel expenses, food, finding daycare, and the overwhelming financial burden for the medical procedure that should be actually considered part of normal health care. So barriers to abortion care are an economic issue, they're a racial justice issue, and systematic racism, economic insecurity, and immigration status multiply the barriers to abortion care. When anti-abortion politicians use the Hyde Amendment to deny abortion coverage, the harm falls hardest on people who are already marginalized by our healthcare system. And that's, like we had said, women of color, young people, transgender, non-binary people. The list goes on and on. Next slide, please. So what is currently happening with the Hyde Amendment? For the first time in decades, the US House passed a spending bill that does not ban Medicaid insurance coverage of abortion through the Hyde Amendment. This move represents a milestone in the national battle for abortion access. People have been working to repeal these amendments for years, and this occurrence recently really helps us to propel the momentum we need to overturn Hyde on a federal level, but also the momentum we need to start to overturn our state funding ban here in Colorado. One of the best things that you can do in our efforts to repeal these types of bans is educate yourself. Attending webinars like this is a great way to stay informed on current information. And it's a great way to really know what is going on and the movements and the next steps we can do to help raise your voice. Also, one of the best ways to help with this is right now, while there is a current funding ban, funding abortion funds is a great way to help, not only with accessing abortion services, but also with the practical care that goes into just getting to abortion access. And so one of the ways you can do that is by donating to Cobalt's abortion fund. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to my colleague, Amanda Carlson, to tell you more about that.
Thank you, Justine. Awesome. So the Cobalt Abortion Fund, as Justine mentioned, when Colorado passed our own version of the Hyde Amendment in 1984, the abortion fund was actually started out of the First Universalist Church here in Colorado, and it was run for about 30 years, and then came under the umbrella of Cobalt in 2017. So we are the largest independent abortion fund of our kind in our state. We also serve clinics across, in addition to clinics across Colorado, we serve clinics in New Mexico, Nevada, and Utah as well. So one of the cool things about our abortion fund is we provide financial assistance for abortion care regardless of income. We don't have an income requirement. We don't have a state residency requirement. Basically, we are able to take you at your word when you say you need funding assistance and provide vouchers to one of the many clinics that we partner with. In addition to funding abortion care, we provide practical support such as transportation and meal assistance. We already had these systems in place because Colorado is unique in that it is one of a handful of states that provides later abortion care. Only a few providers across the country provide the type of care that Dr. Hearn provides in Boulder. So we work with national partners who provide practical support such as the Bridget Alliance and serve folks who are traveling from across the country to come here for abortion care. With SB 8 in Texas and the looming threat of a SCOTUS decision that could basically challenge abortion rights. We are also prepared to serve people who may be traveling here for first trimester care that just can't access it in their state. Next slide, please. So since we became a part of Cobalt, since the fund became a part of Cobalt in 2017, the Cobalt Abortion Fund has served over 3,700 clients, and 10% of these clients have come from out of state. As was mentioned by Justine and Lizzie, folks who already are facing disproportionate barriers to care are the most impacted by bans on abortion care in their states. So we continue to serve clients from across the country who travel here. We provide practical support such as transportation to and from the airport, to and from the clinic, and we send groceries to folks who are in their hotel room who are staying here for several days and often can't afford meals for what is often an unexpected trip that they had to take to get much needed medical care. In 2021, we served 30 patients unable to afford long-acting birth control after their abortion care. That was through a grant for Caring for Colorado. So continuing sort of our wraparound services. And we are now working with funds in Texas and across the region. We run a regional abortion alliance that includes 12 states in our immediate region. We're partnering with those folks who are activist providers and abortion funds to ensure that we are minimizing burdens on folks who are now having to travel as SB 8, as I said, looms in Texas, just streamlining those channels of communication and making sure that if folks do have to travel for abortion care, that is not ideal, but we are going to make it as easy and supportive as possible. Next slide, please. So this is a map courtesy of the Bridget Alliance. They're one of our national partners who provide practical support for later abortion care. We work quite closely with them as well as many of our clinics and funds across the region. This just sort of shows where folks are traveling for later abortion care. This is just specifically from Bridget Alliance's data. So that's folks who are traveling for later care. But we anticipate, and Guttemacher's research backs this up, and I'm happy to provide data on that we just expect a massive increase in travel burdens should the ban in Texas pass, and should hopefully not, SCOTUS decision not go in favor of abortion rights. And I will drop a link to everybody on some of that data, as well as how you can support us. So next slide, please. So one of the cool things about our fund is every dollar donated to the Cobalt Abortion Fund goes directly to clients who need financial assistance for abortion care, as well as practical support services. A lot of our patients face substantial barriers to care, and the average out-of-pocket cost can be around $470. That's an average, but procedures later in pregnancy can be up in the 5-figure range. So, and that's in addition to travel costs. So we really need your support in the form of financial help. Please contact me if you'd like to get involved in whether that's volunteering with Cobalt or donating, gas gift cards, grocery gift cards to our fund. All of those things are needs that our patients face due to barriers to access abortion care. So I will drop, oh, thank you so much here. There's already thank you, Cass, a link to donate to our abortion fund. Grassroots support is really what keeps abortion funds going. Obviously, we love, anonymous funders and things like that, but really that grassroots involvement has always been supporting abortion funds. Abortion funds have been around for a long time. They are here to stay, and they're the reason that that folks are able to access much needed care despite horrible politicians trying to make that difficult. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks for your support.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll move into questions. So if any questions came up for you, this is your chance. You can either drop them in the chat or you can drop them in the Q&A box. So yeah, we'll have a couple of minutes for questions. And for other folks, the other panelists speaking, if there's anything that came up for you, if there's anything you want to address in the chat or just kind of talk a little bit more about, this is your chance. So I'm not seeing any questions. Amanda, you dropped the Guttmacher link in the chat. There's a lot of great links in the chat. I'll make sure to include them in our follow-up email for those folks who joined via phone call or something like that. They'll have access to it. So Karen, yes, thank you. How can callers get involved in your work? Let me see. And then we have another question around, can someone talk about the relationship that Cobalt has with providers who provide Lark?
I can answer that. Yeah, we received grant funding this year too, and we piloted with a couple independent providers to provide post-abortion IUDs for folks that were often traveling from out of state, uninsured, undocumented, and we were able to serve 30 patients, but it really, Colorado and many of our partners here work in a coalition. It's called the Lark Coalition. So we work with many organizations across the state to ensure that coverage for long-acting reversible contraception is available to those who are, for whatever reason, unable to access it. They don't have a primary care provider, things like that. So it's a very essential need. And when we piloted Lark Funding, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, someone, I believe it was 5 or 6 years ago, we saw an over 60% reduction in unintended teen pregnancy in our state.
And I can address how you get more involved in the work. First of all, sign up on our mailing list with our orgs if you have not already. I assume a lot of you are because you're here today, but definitely stay informed. Donating to your local abortion fund, such as Cobalt Abortion Fund, and really pay attention. Who are your local leaders who are pro-choice and supporting these issues? A lot of this comes down to our leaders. So who are we electing? Who is standing up for choice and abortion rights here in Colorado? And reach out to us anytime. All of our orgs are here to listen to your concerns and to help plug you in where you can be effective to help make change here in Colorado.
Yeah, and expanding on that, definitely reach out to us. I know Justine has a great following on Twitter. So if you're like more of a social media person, like we're all on Twitter, we're on Facebook. You'll have access to our emails once we send you the follow-up email. So if you want to just, talk over email or get on the phone, we can definitely connect and plug you in the way that you feel the most comfortable. Also realizing that we're still in a COVID world. So that too, but we also just want to mention that like coming to a webinar, freshening up on the content that you already know is super, super important, because you can contribute to this movement by just talking to your peers, to your immediate family members, to the roommates that you live with, your partners. So spreading this information with the people you love and your chosen family is another great way to actively contribute to this movement. So you don't necessarily have to attend, 5 million things. Like that's a great way of contributing. There's another great question in the chat. So can you all expand on how you're preparing for Texas SBA going into effect soon? I know that you all talked a little bit about it, from the abortion fund side of things. And I think, Justine, you mentioned that you all might be having a webinar soon about this. So just expanding a little bit on that. And then it mentions, what are some of the logistical challenges with that, and how can we help people from Texas get care?
I can speak from the abortion fund side and some of the work we're doing, and then I can kick it over to Justine because there's a broader grassroots webinar coming up. So yeah, as I mentioned, Cobalt is a part, along with many of our partners here, is a part of a 12-state regional abortion alliance. So that includes, I can list all of the states, but I can also just put it in the chat. It's mostly the states in our immediate region. That includes states like Colorado, New Mexico, where there is more expansive access to care, and some states with higher barriers like Wyoming and Kansas. So some of the work that we're doing on the back end is just to work with our friends in Texas, and as well as on the national level, folks providing any sort of practical support care to ensure that we have really solid back channels of communication. I think some of the logistical barriers are one, sometimes people don't even know where to go to even access an abortion, and there's great resources like ineedana.org, things like that. Obviously, a lot of our independent providers just put that on their website, but it can be really daunting, especially if you're somebody who is in a state like Texas, where this bill, SBA, is designed to be really fear-based, that threat of a private lawsuit for a provider or anybody that helped get someone to an abortion after 6 weeks, which might I add is before a lot of people even know that they're pregnant. It's a very fear-based tactic. It's meant to be really messy, to be really scary. The Texas Right to Life created this horrible like whistleblower website for people to report someone they thought can help someone else get an abortion, and that fear of a looming lawsuit. It's fear-based, and I think that it adds undue stress, as it is intended to, on folks who already might not know where to start when they're looking to get abortion care. So Texas is a big state, so folks that one of the abortion fund in Houston just let us know, they're already seeing a huge influx of people from Louisiana. And now we're dealing with maybe getting folks out of Texas. I think what we saw last spring with using COVID as an excuse to ban abortion care as an unnecessary procedure. That was back in April of last year. It was sort of a test run for seeing a flurry of people coming here. Maybe they were even coming here when they could have still gotten an abortion in Texas, but the law kept going back and forth, being blocked and then unblocked. So we're doing the best that we can to solidify our channels of communication with all of our partners, some that are on this call and some that are across our region, to make sure that we're alleviating as much burden as we can and supporting folks with streamlining travel, making sure that they have transportation when they get here, meal support when they get here, childcare if they need it. The Colorado Doula Project does a great job of providing some of those resources as well, and providing a doula who can go with you to your procedure if you're traveling here by yourself. So anything that we can do to alleviate as much burden from patients that is put on them by these horrible politicians in Texas and around our country. That's what we're doing, and Justine can speak to more about the webinar that we're doing to inform some of our folks as well.
Yeah, definitely. So SBA is scheduled to go into effect, I believe, September 2nd or 3rd, the first few days of September. We've seen a lot of bills come out of Texas, but this is especially terrible one that promotes vigilantism, basically, for people trying to access abortion care. So we are actually doing a webinar next month, September 14th at noon Colorado time with my colleague Danny Newsom, and we're going to examine the Texas law and look at the state legislators who passed it, the governor who signed it, and really highlight the people who are really suffering in Texas because of this law and all of the other restrictive abortion laws in Texas. I know we like to joke a lot about Texas and being behind, but really the real tragedy is real people are suffering in Texas, and they are being denied everything from access to abortion to being able to go to the ballot box. So I think it's a real issue that we want to highlight. I dropped the link in to register for that webinar here, A Mess in Texas. Join us, it'll be very interesting. But a lot of the work that we're trying to do on the grassroots side, like Amanda mentioned, working with our partners and finding ways not only to help people access the abortion care they need, but also our team is going to work to raise funds to be able to provide that practical support and really highlight the issues that Texans are facing right now and how that ultimately affects states like Colorado, who will welcome people in who need this care, but it is, increased burden on both of our states, and how we can help fund that and how we can help better understand these types of restrictive laws. Join us on the 14th.
So with that, I think we'll wrap up. I don't see any more questions. Folks will also have a chance to send direct questions when we send that follow-up email. So you'll have our email, so all of our contact information. In the follow-up email will include all the links that were shared in the chat. They're all great links. And then we'll include that event. So if you want to sign up, definitely please sign up to Cobalt's webinar next month. And we'll also include a follow-up survey. So we want to just hear, how you think we did today. If you have any other questions, it's anonymous. You'll also have a chance to fill out like a volunteer form. So if you do want to get involved with either organization, you have that chance. We'll be doing a raffle for a swag bag if you fill out that survey, and obviously it's anonymous, but if you want to be included in this in the swag bag raffle, you can include your email, and that's how we'll contact you to let you know if you want the swag bag. So with that, we'll close out, and if there's anything else left to say from the panelists, I would invite you to say that, but I want to thank everyone for being here today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all. Have a good one. Sorry, I just want to answer the question in the chat. So I will send this recording in the follow-up email. So I know some of the folks jumped on at the end, so we'll include that there. Awesome. Okay, y'all. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.